many words and I'll write the word, like rather than what I'm supposed to be writing.
Yeah. Anyway, Vicky, we got carried away talking there, mate, but we are now live. So hello, everyone on LinkedIn. Thank you for joining us again on Charisma Talks episode 3. Stacking them up here. And my third guest is a very special one, Vicki Handley, copywriter extraordinaire. Vicki, thanks so much for agreeing to come join me today. I'm really excited for this conversation. And I think it's one that's going to be really important for a lot of people out there, especially on LinkedIn, because most of us fail to put ourselves across very authentically and very persuasively. So that's what I'd like to dig in with you today. Before I do so, mate, would you give us a quick fire intro to who you are and who you help?
Of course. So I'm Vicki Handley. I'm a copywriter and also a copywriting trainer and coach as well. And I'm head of client success inside Content to Clients. So I work with service-based business owners usually, and I help them to find their voice. I help them to sell themselves online without selling their souls or feeling disgusting about it. And yeah, I do a lot of work coaching people to write for themselves, but then I also write for people as well. So it's kind of a mixed bag with me, but I love doing both. So yeah, best of both worlds.
Best of both worlds. Amazing. We got Wendy in the house. Wendy, lovely to see you, mate. Thanks for joining us. We last caught up with Wendy at Atomicon, which we're going to chat about in a minute. So, and anyone else who's watching, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. We will do our best to get through them. So yeah, drop anything that you've got, any thoughts or comments. Vicki, I'd love to pick up where I just mentioned with Atomicon. So this was, I don't know, a month ago now, and you were there on the big stage, the main stage at Atomicon. I wanted to ask you one question to kick off.
Yeah, sure.
5 minutes before you stepped on stage to speak in front of all of these people in our industry, the great and good of LinkedIn, how did you feel?
Well, surprisingly enough, I thought I would be absolutely bricking it beforehand because historically, that's how I would have responded. I was actually eerily calm just before because we prepped for, well, God, hours of rehearsals and things. And I obviously had Chris James and Katie Skelton, who are my besties, there with me, and we were all going to do it together. But yeah, it was an eerie, calm feeling. And as they were miking me up and things, and I was looking through kind of the stage door, and I could see people on the stage. I just kept seeing people that I knew, and I was like, oh my God, all these people are here to see us. It's amazing. So yeah, I was really expecting to be absolutely terrified. But yeah, it was just this eerie calm sort of descended. And then I was just ready to get out there and go for it.
That's awesome. Yeah, Wendy's just said the great and the good and me. Wendy, you're definitely one of the great and the good, mate. Definitely. Ina's here as well in the house, and also Victoria's here. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So that's a really interesting comment. Eerily calm.
Yeah.
So when you say eerily, did you feel, was there some kind of discomfort to that? Were you kind of expecting to be more nervous or excited?
I was expecting to be more nervous and excited. I'm a very anxious person. I've had sort of generalized anxiety disorder for a long time, but diagnosed for about 10 years. And it was one of the reasons why I set my business up in a certain way, was that to kind of cope with that. But I just, like this past sort of 18 months or so, maybe 12 to 18 months, I've kind of taken baby steps to get to that place where I feel comfortable getting up on a stage in front of hundreds of people, or 100 people I think were there. And yeah, it was like something just clicked into place. It's like, right, okay, let's go now, we can do this. And sort of Vicki from 5-10 years ago, whatever, she would have not believed it at all, because I probably would have been head in toilet, kind of like being sick, kind of like horrendous nerves and shakes and all the rest of it. But yeah, I think it was the preparation that got me there, because I started off very small. So I started off doing kind of guest expert sessions, masterclasses via Zoom. So I was like, kind of, I had my notes, and it was kind of in my safe space, kind of like my piece of power, something.
Yeah.
And kind of like talking to people, spreading my knowledge, and then kind of moved up from there into like workshops and in real life events, just small audiences. And then finally, this was kind of more of was my first stage appearance as part of someone else's talk. So yeah, it was great. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
It's such a key point. And for anyone listening who is kind of that same mindset of I would never be able to do this, you do have to map out your kind of steps along the journey. You don't want to jump right into doing something that's going to absolutely terrify you. It's just like anything in life. If you wanted to go and run a marathon, that wouldn't be the first thing you do the next day. You would have to spend a year getting ready for it. And it's exactly the same thing with public speaking. And the great thing is, there are so many opportunities now, whether it's LinkedIn Lives like this
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
small workshops or whatever, you know, you don't have to go from 0 to 100. What was your preparation like for that actual speech, Vicki? Because I think a lot of people underestimate the amount of time and effort it takes to be ready for something like that. And then when
Yeah.
it doesn't go very well, they personalize it and say, I am just not good at this. I am not confident, when often it's a lack of preparation.
Yeah, so there were three of us doing the talk. Chris is up north, Katie's down south, and I'm sort of in the Midlands. So we couldn't rehearse together until right at the end. So what we ended up doing was kind of creating the talk and rehearsing the talk all together on Zoom, which was really interesting. Kind of getting the timings of things right and the crossovers and the handovers. That was probably the most difficult part. I think we worked it out, and I think we said it was between 35 and 40 hours of Zoom
Wow.
rehearsals over the period of, like, I think it was about 3 months. That was from creating it all the way through to the final thing. And then we got together the day before Atomicon, all three of us got together, and we just did loads of, like, kind of physical rehearsals in the same space as each other, because we didn't want to just leave it and just be on stage and suddenly it's like this whole physical side of things. What else did we do? We visited the stage. So we saw the
Yep.
stage beforehand. That was a big thing for me, because if I can visualize it, I can see myself there. So I'd had pictures from last year, but it was really useful just popping onto the stage, sticking my head around the stage door and be like, okay, that's where
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
at. Yeah. And then in our rehearsals, I think one of the most important things is I got quite cocky. I was trying to learn the lines of my sections, but actually the most beneficial thing to do was I think the first week we were rehearsing, we just read it off the scripts. We just read the script, just repeat, repeat, repeat. And then we did it from, like, prompts. So we kind of shortened, like, using the slides as prompts and having, like, keywords and things to kind of prompt our memories. And then we went to nothing at all. And then we were just kind of riffing off of each other. And I think that's really important, because a lot of like, when you're in school and things like that and you're prepping for plays or college or uni or wherever, the aim is always to learn the lines as quick as possible and then go for it. But actually that repetition and just reading it off, you don't realize what associations your brain is making until you sit there, and it almost becomes like a kind of muscle memory, I think. But yeah, 35 to 40 hours we spent all together, and that was a combination of run throughs, individual sections. That was us sticking a timer on and us all just rehearsing on our own. It's a combination of sitting down, standing up, moving around, all sorts of things. It was quite the process. But it
Flipping
was
heck,
great.
mate. Yeah, no.
Yeah, we had a great
Sounds like
fun
you
with
were.
it.
That's like more prep than you do to go and perform at the National Opera or something.
But yeah, it
But I
was great.
mean, hats off. You mentioned so many things there that I think I would love to pick up on. We don't have time
Mm,
to mention all of them. You have approached that very much like a play, though, in terms of the what you would call being off script. So you start with your script in hand, and then you slowly become off script. And it's a really good way to learn, because it gives you that trust that you do know what you are talking about. But rather than learning it at a kind of a surface level where you just know the individual words, you are kind of learning it in your bones, so to speak.
yeah,
And it
absolutely.
means that even if you forget a single word or something, you still know the overall flow and
Yeah.
structure so well that you can handle it perfectly fine.
Yeah, because that was
So
part of the problem. Was like, at one point when I was starting to learn it, if I forgot an individual word, blank. It's like you
yeah,
can't, if you're on stage, you can't just go blank. So yeah, exactly like when you say learning it in your bones, so you just, like, you know it inside out, upside down, back to front. But actually it doesn't matter. It gets to a point where it doesn't matter if you fluff your words up, because you know the messages, you know the order, you know everything else. So you can freestyle and it comes across more naturally.
yes,
So that was a great way of making sure that we felt comfortable enough to mess up. Like, we knew that we had it down, and the people around us would jump in, obviously, if it went really bad, but it didn't, obviously.
yeah.
But yeah, that was the best way for me to give myself permission to mess up, because I knew the overall well enough that I could just freestyle it if I needed to.
Yeah. I think some people mistakenly think that if you over prepare, you become kind of locked in, where actually that's the middle section, and the bit past that where you're really prepared, you are free to then improvise and add things because, excuse me, because you know it so well.
Yeah,
And the other
absolutely.
thing that I was going to mention that I think is really fun for your particular experience is the fact that you had the three of you together, and
Yeah,
that camaraderie must have really helped, because if you're doing it
definitely.
solo, obviously it's a bit more daunting, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Like I would have been a lot more nervous if it was just me. Obviously, like it's yeah, absolutely, because that's you're the only focus on the stage. But yeah, another thing that really really helped was both mine and Katie's sections were split in half. So the first bit was just fun, making people laugh. It was like we were doing like a spoof really of kind of like I was Boss Babe, she was Hustle Bro, of these kind of characters that people would recognize, and the whole point of it was just to like show people doing things badly and make people laugh. So that for me diffused a lot of that kind of potential fear, was that people aren't looking at you expecting wisdom straight away. You're just there having being a bit silly, having a bit of fun.
Yeah.
And then later in the talk, once you're kind of moving on that sort of adrenaline anyway, then we moved into the serious bit where we got to talk about our respective areas. So I was talking about
Yeah.
client success and what that looks like. But yeah, having that, I think getting out there and having the point of making people laugh, like, or just kind of release that tension a little bit, I think for me, definitely. So yeah, it was good.
Well, this is the whole point of the icebreaker. This is like public speaking ancient law. You know, it's start with something that's a bit more fun and a little bit less serious, because it puts you at ease and the audience, rather than going straight into kind of trying to be the authority here. So, okay, I could talk about this all day, but let's move on to the LinkedIn writing stuff, because I think that's what a lot of people might have been watching for as well. So I wanted to ask you about your authentic voice on LinkedIn and when you're writing, personally, because this is something I've struggled with. So just to set the stage, there we go. When when I first came onto LinkedIn, Vicky, I used to write like a LinkedIn robot. You know, here are 5 tips for public speaking, and here's this. And to be fair, I still do sometimes now. You know, I've not got that far, but I've definitely improved somewhat. But when people talk about speaking with your authentic voice, I think there's a lot to that. And when you are actually verbally speaking, that comes a lot more naturally to people. But when you have to take your thoughts and then your voice and your words and put them into words, a lot of people can't make that transition. So I just wondered whether you have any kind of broad tips for getting to that place.
Yeah, I definitely do. I'm just making a note of something so I don't forget it, because brain like a sieve. Yeah, so key thoughts to authenticity, I think, is knowing who you are, knowing what you stand for, kind of what like your kind of your overarching values, if you like. I'm not talking about company values or anything like that, but just knowing who you are as a person, knowing what your end goal is as well from your content. I think a lot of people come online and they're like, right, I must speak, I must talk profound truths like the Gary V's and all the rest of it. I must give frameworks, I must give value, I must give advice. But actually they forget that value can also be entertainment. It can just be having a bit of a chat. People put their content and their writing and their creation onto a pedestal. So I think that's one thing. They think that something has to be worthy of sharing, and that's why you end up with those 5 frameworks for this, and kind of sharing those things. They forget to be a human. Which happens to all of us when we first come out. It's like I must do this in a certain way because this is what I see, and this is the kind of you kind of do go robotic, and a lot of people don't know why they're creating content. Like they haven't, if they're coming on here to sell something or promote their business or build brand awareness or whatever that end goal is, they often haven't articulated that. And I think part of the problem is you can't communicate a message that isn't clear in your own mind. So when you know, for example, like myself, that you're coming on here online to help people get leads from LinkedIn, or to help people find their authentic voice, all that kind of stuff, it instantly becomes easier to know what to write about and how to write about it, because you need to know who you're talking to and why you're talking to them, and then that kind of helps. And I think that comes more naturally in like a face-to-face conversation anyway, because you kind of get a sense of the person and get to know them and everything. But you can feel a bit like you're screaming into the void when you first start on LinkedIn, because you haven't got those relationships with people. You haven't got that kind of, like, I hate using this word because everyone uses it, but that community of people that come in and check out your post because they know you, like you, trust you. Like you haven't got that. So finding that authentic voice can be quite difficult.
Yeah.
So something that I recommend to my clients is, when you start out on LinkedIn, let people get to know you. Just start off with pure personality stuff, like stuff you're interested in, your past experience, your kind of bring your stories and your personal experience into things. And it becomes easier when you're trying to storytell, when you're just trying to, like, I don't know, share an experience or talk about what you're working on or whatever. It almost becomes like you're documenting what you're doing rather than showcasing like these amazing things that have happened. And when you take your content and LinkedIn itself, or whatever the platform, off that pedestal, and you just start treating it like, I recommend treating it like an office kitchen. That's how I use LinkedIn. It's a bit of a diary. It's a bit of telling people where I'm up to, what I'm getting on with. It's a bit of finding out about where people are in their own lives, their personal lives, professional lives. There's a bit of work chat in there as well, but most of the time you're just there just to get to know people and be social. And I think that's this the bit people forget. They put it on such a pedestal that I must give value, I must provide, I must do this, I must do that. So actually you forget to have fun with it as well. And I think that's a key thing when people lose their authenticity, is they feel they have to be this polished version of themselves that doesn't actually exist. So yeah.
I'm just imagining myself walking to the metaphorical office kitchen and going, hello, everyone. Here are 5 tips for your next public speech.
Exactly.
Number
You
1.
wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do
like,
it. You'd ask Susan how her house move's going, or you'd be like, oh, it's that time of the month again. Let's talk about the, like, I don't know, finance reports, or something. Like you would just talk about stuff that's relevant and useful to them, and just have a bit of a chat. Like when
Such
people
a great point.
make that shift, it becomes so much easier to be authentic, because you're not just spouting off frameworks and tips and just like that kind of content that you see all around the place. And there is a place for that, don't get me wrong, but that can't be the whole strategy, because especially for service-based businesses, people buy into you. There's always another copywriter, there's always another, I don't know, coach, there's always another consultant. But actually when you are providing a service, you are part of your unique selling point, your unique value proposition, whatever you want to call it. And you can't get away from that, especially on a place like LinkedIn. So you have to bring yourself to the table and give yourself permission to just be yourself. So yeah.
Wow, mate, that was an absolutely fantastic monologue on you answered everything and more there about authenticity. That was excellent. I think I'm going to probably take away most of that. I'm going to try to capture all of that in that visual of the office kitchen, because that represents a lot of what you just said, and try to remember that the next time I'm writing a post. Just to say hello to a few people. Anwen's joined as well, and LinkedIn user. I've got quite a few of LinkedIn users here. I don't know why their names don't appear up, but whoever are these LinkedIn users, hello, welcome. Thank you for being here. Any questions, guys, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Vicki, the next thing
I just thought of something else. I was just going to say something that I see a lot of, particularly with people that struggle with authenticity, is that they edit themselves out of their posts. So I just quickly wanted to give a tip, really, that if you tend to find that you write something down and then you edit it and you tweak it and you change it and you change it, and then by the time it gets there, it's so boring that even you don't want to read it. Something that I recommend. I didn't want to say, I remember our conversation. But, something that can be really, really helpful to just stop you from doing that, because what people do is they actually they go back to a place of being in school where there's like red pen over things, and they take out all the interesting things, or your tones, like the way that you speak, the phrases that you use. So if you set yourself a time limit of, say, I don't know, I give myself like 15 minutes, but I'm a writer, so I'm going to be quicker than a lot of people to create these kinds of short pieces of content, is just set yourself a timer and say, whatever this looks like at the end of these 10 minutes, however long, that's how it's going out. And that stops you. It stops you from, it doesn't stop you from editing, but it stops you from over editing and editing yourself out, because you don't have time to faff around with this particular word or that particular word. So yeah, that can be a really useful tip for stopping yourself from removing like the idiosyncrasies and the things that make you, like how you speak, and then it comes across more naturally. And also operating on constraints is always effective to kind of get you focused on moving towards that end goal as well.
That's such a good tip. I am terrible for that, Vicki. I will just edit and I'll get myself into just a loop where it's a vicious circle where I'm editing the things I've just edited, and then you just lose all energy, and then you just think, screw it, I'll post tomorrow. So having the time limit, thinking about the office kitchen, thinking about, just showing up and telling people stories rather than always trying to be super professional about it. Yeah, all really good tips. Following on from that, I wanted to ask you what I hope is an interesting question, which is, as a copywriter, can you spot other people on LinkedIn or who are writing online who have got copywriting skills or training? Do you think that you can see things and go, yes, this person I can tell? Or is it not as clear cut as that?
Yes, you can. There's different things. So there'll be, when you're aware of copywriting frameworks, so things like create a problem, agitate it, discredit the other kind of options on the market and then solve their problem. There are like typical formulas that you see a lot. So you can because they work. A lot of copywriting is structure, frameworks, process. Like it's like proven processes that work, that tapped into psychology. So you see things a lot. You also see things like hero's journey, which is like a storytelling framework, which you see it everywhere. You see it in films, you see it in like box sets, you see it on all kinds of storytelling frameworks. So things like where you've got someone who's comfortable in life and then they meet somebody and it changes their perspective and they're called for an adventure, and then there's a challenge, and then there's this, and then there's that, and then they come back and they've like reborn like a hero, kind of those. That's the hero's journey story. So you kind of recognize those frameworks, but then you also see you can see when people have either invested in training or they're working with a professional, because they're answering the right questions. So they're always focused on what's most relevant to their target market, what's most relevant, like what questions are they asking and answering. They're talking about things like the impact and the transformations of what their work does with people, those kinds of things. So you can spot it. You absolutely can spot it. You can also spot it when people are using AI. Not necessarily.
Oh yeah, I mean, even someone untrained can do that, right? I think we can all just see it a million miles away.
Yeah, so you do learn to spot those things, but then also you spot things everywhere with copywriting generally. Like I'm a loser, but because I'm a geek on this stuff. But whenever I read an advert or even packaging, like this is how bad it is, and I read it and I thought, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I take a picture of it and I've got like a swipe file, because I'm like, I want to know why that worked on me. So then I like that's how I get. Like, that's what I do for kicks. But yeah, you can tell.
You get kicked out of a lot of supermarkets, don't you, Vicky? It's a real shame.
I'm on a list.
Yeah, blacklisted. Yeah.
But yeah, it's you can spot it, but then I also love it when I can spot somebody that doesn't have that kind of background knowledge, but they communicate in a really interesting way. So I really enjoy seeing the other side of it. And the thing that I love most is when you see somebody that didn't have that knowledge and you kind of show them a tip or like extensive, kind of give them proper training on it, and then you see the impact that makes, because they've already got that starting point and then they just fly. So yeah, you can definitely, I can definitely spot it. I don't know if sort of the untrained kind of layperson would necessarily, but yeah, it's always interesting for me going on LinkedIn. I lose a lot of time because I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see you're improving, or you need to work on this bit or whatever. So yeah, it's I can
imagine.
Yeah.
So we've mentioned quite a lot of different things here, and a lot of people will be familiar with certain aspects of copywriting, whether it's the structure, whether it's the need for a hook or a call to action or storytelling. I wondered whether there was any one universal checkbox that you always want to apply to every single post, whether it's for you, one of your clients. Is there something that needs to always be there?
For me, I keep it really simple. It's who, what, when, where, why, and how. So like for every piece of copy I create, and even the pre-work for that. So who am I talking to? Where are they at? What do I need to say to them to get them to do what I need them to do? Where and when are they in their kind of either in the customer journey or in their kind of business, sort of where they're at in business and able to invest. I think I missed one. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. And how am I going to get them? How am I going to get them to take that next step? And then the why is, why now? Why do they need to take this step, and why is it important? So that was a bit garbly, but yeah, I keep it simple to make sure that I answer those questions, and then that usually gives you enough either across the customer journey, like the whole process, to understand where they're going to be and what steps you need them to take, but also in relation to one piece of copy, whether that's a social media post, whether it's a landing page, whatever. Like, it doesn't really matter. The kind of you can apply that to make sure that you've got all your bases and angles covered, and usually that's sufficient. The main thing that I remind people of is that copy and content, although they're two separate things, so content is usually to engage people, it's to inspire, enthuse, educate, all that kind of stuff. Copy is the other side of that coin. It's taking all that nice stuff and turning it into action. It's all about persuasion.
Right.
Creating
I see.
but they're like, it divides the industry whether they are the same thing. But I always think combine the two together, because if you look at content separately to your copy, you rarely get to a selling situation unless you've done that groundwork in relation to. So if you can put them together and kind of create that nice customer journey, you're always going to come out on top. That's my professional opinion. Hopefully there's no copyright comments coming at me for that, but well,
all right, we encourage debate here. So that is an interesting way of framing it. I never really thought about that distinction quite so clearly. Do you think that a post should either sell or not sell? You know, should it be explicit, or is it okay to kind
I
of
think it
weave
needs
it?
to be explicit, because like I always say one thing, try and do one thing, and whether that thing is selling or whether that thing is like getting a sign up to an email list, or whether it's just like inspiring debate, whatever that thing is, I always pick one and have that as the focus of the post. Because if you give them too much choice, or you try to do too much in one post, people will do nothing, because doing nothing is the easiest choice to make. So if you can, like, I see it a lot on Instagram, where it's like, follow, tag, jump on one like 3 times. Like there's all these options, and it's too much. So what I try to do is focus, and depending on where the client, the prospect is in the customer journey as well, it's going to depend what they need. So you need to be really clear on who you're talking to and where they're at. If you're trying to sell something, people will start at that top of that funnel. They won't know who you are. They won't necessarily know they've got a problem. They certainly won't know that you're the solution. So you've got to kind of think at the top of the funnel, when they don't know who you are, what are they thinking, feeling, kind of considering, looking for in a solution? Do they even know they need a solution at that point? And then you've almost got to take that fictional person, on a bit of a journey to find out what they need at each stage, and then reverse engineer that within your content and your copy. That's what I do with my clients, and that's what gets us the best results, is kind of taking that. You're almost time traveling. You're almost talking to that person at different points in time, like where they're at and what they need, and what they expect, and how you can like exceed those expectations and get them to like you and get in touch with you. So yeah.
It's really interesting, and it's really so much more sophisticated than what most people do, which is just what's a thought, like blast it on LinkedIn, and that's the process in a nutshell. And so to go behind,
that's fine at the
start, yeah, but as you get more advanced, this is the kind of stuff that makes the difference, right? Really having that work in the background that is facilitating the effectiveness of each post.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've only got you for another 5 or 6 minutes, Vicky. So what I wanted to do was do a bit of a fast fire section. So I'm gonna kind of say some things that I see in public speaking, and I want to get your kind of take on it in terms of the writing perspective, because these are things that I think there's either similarities or differences. So firstly, knowing your audience. When you go to do a speech, you know, you've generally got an audience of people from a specific sector of society, right? At Atomicon, it's small business owners, but it could be anything. And you need to make sure you are catering your message to them. How do you do that on LinkedIn when you've got maybe a much wider, broader audience?
You know what you're selling is the first thing. Like a lot of us come, like I did this at the start, turn up as a writer. Like, I'm a writer, I can do everything. What do you need? But actually having that foundational piece clear, that actually my specialism is either LinkedIn copywriting, or it could be landing pages, or it could be coaching people to write better. But knowing what that starting point is helps you then create the audience that you're looking to attract and write for, and kind of to bring into your world, if you like. So yeah, you have to know what you're selling in order to work out who that audience is, because somebody that wants a landing page is very different to somebody who wants, I don't know, help finding their authentic voice so they can write their own copy. So there's two very different things. But I think if you start with the end in mind, like this is the thing that I want to be known for, I'm selling, my methodology, whatever, then you can absolutely reverse engineer what problems that person has, what challenges they're experiencing, what they're thinking, feeling, expecting, all those things. And then you can craft a target audience much easier than if you're just the writer who caters for everybody, or the coach who caters for everybody. So
yeah. Awesome. Again, you know, this is something that a lot of people, they don't get over this first hurdle. It seems quite simple, but it's often overlooked. Next thing, capturing attention. When it comes to speaking, I often borrow the copywriting technique of a hook, and I will advise people to do something in that first minute that is a bit different, that breaks the mold, captures people's attention, and is a little bit different. What is that like in writing at the moment? You know, is it an evolving thing? Are there new hooks? Is it the old traditional things that always work? What would be your 2 cents there?
Combination. On LinkedIn is seeing a lot more kind of formulaic hooks at the moment. So I think it helps to be kind of quite wacky, quite off the wall, but something like a genuine, like a general, as a general rule, if you can appeal to someone's self-interest, they're going to be interested in it. Something that I tend to do is create curiosity. And I usually do that by creating a knowledge gap. And that's why you see the formulaic hooks coming in. Because it's like what I mean by a knowledge gap is like we're biologically programmed to find stuff out. Curiosity is probably the human trait, right, that we're most well known for. So if you can kind of give a snippet or a taster of what they're going to get, but make it so that they need to know more, that's a really good way of creating a hook. Because yeah, you're absolutely right. If the title's not right, if the first few moments aren't right, you've lost them immediately. So you do have to step it up. Like like I say it all the time. Even the best post in the world will live or die by the strength of its headline. And that sounds dramatic, but it is. Like it's absolute truth. If you can't capture that attention and make it specific and kind of make people feel seen a little bit, or kind of called out, you're going to lose them in the infinite scroll. And one way that I do that, another way that I do that is by using the words of my clients and my target clients against them. So like I've got I don't know if I should swear on here, but I've got a masterclass called Say Yourself Online without looking or feeling like a dickhead. And that's because
switch off her mic.
And that's because I hear that on every sales call. Like those particular words, I hear them on every sales call, or it makes me want to vomit, or selling my soul, or icky, disgusting sales tactics. Those kinds of phrases that I hear time and time and time again, they really resonate with people. And that's a really good way of kind of, if you can bring that into your hooks and make it really specific to that person, your click-through rate will be better than if you don't.
Awesome. Really, really good advice, that one, mate. Okay. Next quick fire. Filler words. In public speaking, as I'm sure you know, people get stuck using too many unnecessary words and sounds. And there's many reasons, it's lack of preparation, lack of confidence, or just a bad speaking habit. Obviously, I think this translates quite a lot into the written word as well. Do you see people posting with too many filler words, so to speak?
Absolutely. Get rid of them. Like words like just, should, can, all these kinds of words, like we can do this. Well, instantly you're giving people doubt with that word, with it. We can, but that doesn't mean we will. It's like, no, we do these things. Like the more direct you can be, I think it's copywriting is about being clear. It's about being concise. It's about giving people the information they want as quickly as possible. And you don't want those filler words in there. They don't serve a purpose. They make paragraphs longer. They lose clarity. And I think if you lose clarity, you lose people along the way. And the same with those filler words that you see in speeches and everything else. It gives people time to think. So I get why they're there. But bin them. Always bin them. Like get rid of them as much as you possibly can, because you're diluting your message at the end of the day with those kinds of words.
Brilliant. I often think sometimes if you were to take a verbal speech that someone's given and write it out in text form and show them, and you can visually show them the lack of structure, the lack of pauses, the lack of paragraphs. It's like a TLDR, just a wall of text. And so kind of being able to think about this in both speaking and writing is really helpful, I think.
Definitely.
Vicki, I don't want to keep you too much longer, mate, because I know that you're very busy and you've got a lot going on, but you have got some interesting things coming up soon. So would you like to take a minute and just tell people what's coming up down the line for you, how they can get in touch with you, etc.?
Absolutely. So if you don't follow me already, follow me. I'm Vicki Handley. I'm the one with green hair. I've got a really exciting challenge that I'm running in August. I've got a short course called Think Like a Copywriter, which just helps people think about things differently so that they can then act differently when they're creating their content. And I'm running it live in middle of August. And I want as many people on it as possible. We're going to get really clear on pain points. We're going to get really clear on your target market. We're going to get really clear on how you can use your own individual processes and how you work and what makes you special to overcome those pain points and get people over the line and on working with you ultimately. currently. So yeah, in August I'm running that, and then in September I'm running my final Think Right Sell cohort of 2024, and that is a deep dive into your customer journey. We look at your social posts, we look at your foundational stuff like what you're selling, we look at your email copywriting, and we look at your landing pages to make sure that all your messaging is tight, sending the right messages to people and getting them over the line. So yeah, really excited for both of those.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Well, look, if anyone is interested in that, highly recommend you go and connect with Vicki on LinkedIn. And do you use a website as well, Vicki, for anyone who's not LinkedIn?
Quirkcopywriting.co.uk.
Quirkcopywriting.co.uk.
Yes.
Awesome. I'll put that in the show notes below as well for people.
Fabulous.
Final question, mate. Have you got any more public speaking gigs on the way?
I haven't got any in person, but I'm doing a masterclass inside the Hulk for Leah Turner on the 1st of August.
Lovely.
And Six Figure Bookkeeper podcast as well. And I think that's the 2nd or 3rd week of August. So yeah, I've got some really good ones lined up.
Amazing. Well, listen, Vicki, thank you so much again, mate, for coming and sharing all of your knowledge. I hope to catch you soon on another stage in the near future. It's been awesome. Thanks, mate.
All right, take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.